The research ship Silverwing moved quietly above Earth. Inside the ship, a young alien scientist named Lyra looked at the blue planet on her screen. She was part of the Galactic Culture Institute. Her job was simple, but important. She had to study humans and learn how they choose their mates. Many alien species wanted this information because humans were becoming very important in the galaxy. Lyra was excited about the mission. Humans were famous for doing strange things. One report said humans fought dangerous animals for fun. Another report said humans could become friends after only a few minutes of talking. But the most confusing thing was human relationships. No alien scientist had fully understood them. That was why Lyra was sent to Earth. For 3 weeks, she watched humans from a hidden station above a large city. She saw men and women meeting in coffee shops every morning. Sometimes one human paid for another human's drink. Sometimes they smiled and laughed for no reason. Lyra quickly wrote everything down in her report. According to her first notes, coffee was clearly an important mating ritual. The next day, she noticed something even stranger. A young man removed his jacket and placed it over a woman's shoulders because she felt cold. The woman smiled and thanked him. Lyra almost jumped from her chair with excitement. In her species, giving personal clothing was a serious promise of partnership. She quickly added a new line to her report. Humans exchange body coverings to show mating interest. Her excitement grew every day. She watched humans sharing food in parks and restaurants. One woman gave her fries to a man sitting beside her. The man smiled and gave her some of his sandwich. Lyra could not believe her eyes. Sharing food was one of the oldest mating traditions in the galaxy. For her, the meaning was completely clear. Then came the event that changed everything. Lyra watched 2 human friends meet near a train station. The man opened his arms and the woman hugged him tightly. They laughed for a few seconds and then walked away in different directions. Lyra stared at the screen in complete shock. On her world, physical contact like that was only for married couples. Humans were far stranger than anyone imagined. Her report became bigger every day. Coffee meant attraction. Sharing clothes meant commitment. Sharing food meant trust between future partners. Hugging meant a strong emotional bond. Lyra smiled proudly as she read her notes again and again. This mission would make her famous in the Institute. She could already imagine receiving awards for her discoveries. However, one problem remained. Galactic science required direct testing before final approval. Observation alone was not enough. The scientist had to experience the culture personally. Lyra looked at the rulebook on her desk and sighed. There was only one way to finish the mission. She would have to visit Earth herself and test the rituals. 2 days later, a young woman entered a busy human city. Of course, it was Lyra using her human disguise technology. Nobody noticed anything unusual about her. She looked exactly like an ordinary university student. Her translator worked perfectly, and her human clothes matched the local fashion. Everything was ready for the final stage of her research. Lyra entered a small coffee shop near a university campus. Students were talking, reading books, and working on computers. Then she noticed a human male sitting alone near the window. He looked calm and friendly. A notebook and a cup of coffee rested on the table in front of him. Lyra smiled confidently because she knew exactly what to do. She walked to the counter and bought 2 cups of coffee. According to her research, this was the first step of human courtship. She carried the second cup to the young man's table. The human looked up with surprise as she placed it in front of him. "This is for you," she said with a polite smile. The man thanked her and invited her to sit down. Lyra's heart raced with excitement. The first ritual had worked perfectly. She quickly opened her hidden recorder under the table. Every word and every movement would be sent to the Institute. But she had no idea that she was only seconds away from making the biggest mistake of her entire life. Because in her bag, hidden under several books, were flowers, chocolate, and a printed partnership agreement translated into 7 galactic languages. And she was planning to give all of them to the confused human sitting in front of her. Lyra sat across from the young human and tried to stay calm. The man smiled and thanked her again for the coffee. He introduced himself as Daniel, a university student studying history. Lyra quickly saved the information in her hidden recorder. According to her research, exchanging names was an important step in human bonding. Everything seemed to be happening exactly as her report had predicted. Daniel asked if she was new in the city because he had never seen her before. Lyra nodded and used the story prepared by her ship's computer. She told him that she had recently moved there for research work. Daniel smiled and welcomed her to the city. Lyra almost celebrated inside her mind. Friendly words during the first meeting clearly showed positive mating interest. After a few minutes, Lyra decided to continue the experiment. She slowly opened her bag and removed a small box of chocolates. Daniel looked surprised as she pushed the box toward him. On Lyra's world, sweet gifts were exchanged only between future partners. Daniel thanked her politely and laughed. He thought she was simply being kind. Lyra quickly wrote another note inside her recorder. Human males accept sweet gifts with happiness and approval. Her excitement grew stronger with every second. This mission was becoming more successful than she had ever imagined. Soon her name would appear in scientific journals across the galaxy. Young researchers would study her work for generations. Then came the second stage of the ritual. Lyra carefully removed a bouquet of flowers from her bag and placed it on the table. Daniel blinked several times and looked around the coffee shop. Some nearby students also noticed the flowers and smiled. One student even whispered something to his friend while laughing quietly. Daniel scratched the back of his head and looked confused. He asked if there was a special reason for the gifts. Lyra answered with complete honesty. She told him that she was following human mating customs exactly as she had observed them. For several seconds, Daniel simply stared at her without saying a word. Lyra misunderstood his silence immediately. In her culture, silence meant emotional acceptance and respect. She proudly opened her recorder and marked another successful observation. Daniel finally laughed softly and assumed she was joking. He asked if this was some kind of social experiment for the university. Lyra smiled and replied that it was a scientific mission. The young human laughed even harder. He believed she had a very unusual sense of humor. Around them, the coffee shop remained busy and noisy. Nobody realized that an alien scientist was recording one of the biggest misunderstandings in galactic history. Lyra looked around proudly as if she had solved a great mystery. Then she reached for the final item hidden inside her bag. Daniel watched as she slowly removed several printed papers. The papers were perfectly translated into English by her ship's computer. At the top of the first page were the words, "Partnership Agreement." Daniel's smile disappeared almost immediately. Lyra pushed the papers across the table with confidence. She explained that human tradition required official recognition of successful courtship rituals. Since coffee, gifts, and conversation had gone well, the next logical step was partnership registration. Daniel nearly dropped his cup while reading the document. He wondered if hidden cameras were recording the moment. The agreement contained many strange questions. It asked about preferred living temperatures, future children, and travel plans between star systems. Daniel stared at the words, "star systems," for several seconds. He looked up at Lyra and waited for the punchline. But the young woman in front of him looked completely serious. Before Daniel could answer, Lyra stood up from her chair. Following the customs of her own world, she gave a respectful bow. Then she held out her hand and formally asked if he accepted the partnership proposal. The entire coffee shop suddenly became very quiet. Several people stopped talking and turned toward their table. Daniel's face became bright red as dozens of eyes focused on him. Someone near the counter pulled out a phone to record the scene. Another student whispered that this was better than any television show. Lyra noticed none of this because she was waiting for the official response. Her recorder captured every second carefully. Then Daniel slowly raised his hand and asked the question that changed everything. "Wait, are you actually serious?" For the first time since arriving on Earth, Lyra began to wonder if she had misunderstood something important. For several long seconds, Daniel simply stared at Lyra. The coffee shop was completely silent now. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. Lyra stood proudly beside the table and waited for his answer. According to her research, this was the moment when humans accepted or rejected partnership offers. She was sure the process was going perfectly. Daniel finally took a deep breath and looked at her carefully. He asked if she truly believed that coffee, flowers, and chocolate were part of human mating rituals. Lyra immediately nodded with confidence. She explained that she had spent weeks studying human behavior. Every observation clearly supported her conclusions. Daniel slowly covered his face with both hands. A few students nearby started laughing quietly. One girl almost dropped her drink while listening to the conversation. Daniel tried very hard not to laugh because Lyra looked completely serious. He gently explained that humans often bought coffee for friends and co-workers. Flowers and chocolate were gifts, but not always romantic ones. Lyra's confident smile slowly disappeared. Lyra opened her recorder and checked her notes again. Every page suddenly felt less certain than before. She remembered the friends who had shared food in the park. She remembered the jacket that one human had given another during the cold evening. For the first time, doubt entered her mind. Had she misunderstood human kindness for something else? Daniel noticed the worried look on her face. He spoke softly and explained that humans often helped people without expecting rewards. Friends shared food because they cared for each other. Family members hugged to show love and support. Even strangers sometimes helped one another during difficult times. Lyra listened carefully to every word. The idea shocked her more than anything else she had learned. On her world, gifts and physical contact had very specific meanings. Nobody shared valuable things without important reasons. Humans seemed completely different from every species she knew. Their kindness moved freely between friends, family, and even strangers. The concept felt almost impossible to understand. At that exact moment, Lyra's hidden recorder sent all the collected information to her ship above Earth. Inside the Silver Wing, the ship's computer immediately forwarded the report to the Galactic Culture Institute. Hundreds of scientists received the document within minutes. The title of the report quickly spread through research networks: Human Mating Rituals and Social Bonding Practices. The report caused excitement across several star systems. Alien researchers read about coffee exchanges and food sharing with great interest. Some scientists called it the most important human study ever written. Others praised Lyra's courage for testing the rituals personally. Nobody realized that the information was dangerously incorrect. The misunderstanding was growing larger every minute. Back on Earth, Daniel asked the question that worried him most. He wanted to know why Lyra knew so much about stars and space travel. During their conversation, she had mentioned things that no normal human should know. Lyra froze immediately after hearing the question. She realized she had made a serious mistake during the discussion. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Daniel looked at her with growing curiosity. Lyra's mind raced as she searched for an answer. Her training had prepared her for many situations, but not this one. The truth was dangerous, but another lie could make things worse. She stood completely still beside the table. Then her wrist communicator suddenly began to flash with a red warning light. Only Lyra could see the hidden signal under her skin disguise. The message came directly from Captain Varen aboard the Silver Wing. It contained only 4 simple words. Return immediately. Major problem detected. Lyra looked toward the sky through the coffee shop window. Somewhere above the clouds, her ship was waiting for her. She had arrived on Earth to study humans. Instead, she might have started the biggest diplomatic mistake in galactic history. And she still had no idea how serious the situation had become. Lyra left the coffee shop and quickly returned to the Silver Wing. Captain Varen was waiting for her inside the command room. His face looked more serious than she had ever seen before. Large screens showed messages arriving from many star systems. The entire Galactic Culture Institute was discussing her report. Lyra suddenly felt nervous for the first time. Captain Varen explained the situation carefully. Several alien governments had already accepted her findings as official scientific facts. Some species had started preparing diplomatic plans based on human mating customs. One world had ordered thousands of flowers for future negotiations with Earth. Another had imported coffee machines for government buildings. The misunderstanding was spreading rapidly across the galaxy. Lyra's eyes grew wide as she read the reports. One reptilian species planned to offer sandwiches during trade meetings. Another civilization believed sharing jackets created legal partnerships. Some governments were even preparing gift boxes with chocolate and flowers. Galactic leaders wanted stronger relations with humanity. Unfortunately, they were using completely wrong information. Back on Earth, strange signals suddenly appeared near the moon. Human observatories detected several unknown ships entering the solar system. News stations across the world began reporting the event immediately. Governments called emergency meetings to discuss possible first contact. Nobody knew whether the visitors came as friends or enemies. Fear quickly spread across the planet. Inside the alien fleet, Ambassador Relek adjusted his ceremonial uniform. He carried flowers in one hand and expensive chocolates in the other. According to Lyra's report, these gifts would show peaceful intentions. Behind him stood several assistants carrying coffee containers and gift baskets. The ambassador felt confident about the meeting. He expected humans to appreciate the effort. When the first alien ship landed near the United Nations building, cameras from around the world captured everything. Human diplomats approached carefully while security teams watched nearby. Ambassador Relek walked forward with a friendly smile. Without saying a word, he handed flowers and chocolates to the surprised human representatives. The diplomats exchanged confused looks with each other. The confusion became even worse a few moments later. Relek offered cups of coffee to everyone at the meeting table. Several diplomats accepted politely and thanked him for the drink. The alien ambassador smiled with great satisfaction after seeing their response. According to his information, the humans had accepted the first stage of bonding rituals. The negotiations were going perfectly. High above Earth, Lyra watched the broadcast with horror. She immediately understood what was happening. Every polite smile and every accepted gift was being misunderstood again. The alien delegation believed humanity was agreeing to partnership customs. The humans believed the aliens were simply being friendly visitors. Two civilizations were having completely different conversations. Captain Varen ordered Lyra to prepare a correction report immediately. The misunderstanding had already become a diplomatic emergency. If nobody acted quickly, the situation could become much worse. Lyra sat down at her station and began rewriting everything she had learned. Human kindness was not romance. Human friendship was something much larger. Meanwhile, at the United Nations, Ambassador Relek stood proudly and made his final announcement. He thanked humanity for accepting the opening stages of interstellar courtship traditions. Then he requested permission to begin formal partnership negotiations between species. The entire meeting room became completely silent. Human diplomats stared at him in total shock. On the silver wing, Lyra slowly closed her eyes. One small mistake in a coffee shop had grown into a galactic problem. Billions of beings across many worlds now believed the same false story. She had wanted to understand humanity better than anyone else. Instead, she had accidentally changed the future of first contact forever. And the hardest part was still waiting for her, because now she had to explain human friendship to an entire galaxy. Lyra worked through the entire night inside the silver wing. She carefully corrected every mistake in her report. Coffee was not a mating ritual. Sharing food was not a marriage promise. Flowers and chocolate could mean friendship, kindness, or love, depending on the situation. Human behavior was far more complex than anyone expected. Captain Varen immediately sent the new report across the galaxy. Scientists and diplomats stopped their preparations and studied the correction carefully. Many researchers could not believe what they were reading. Why would humans share valuable things without expecting anything in return? For many species, such behavior simply did not exist. Humanity suddenly became even more mysterious. At the United Nations, human diplomats patiently explained their customs to Ambassador Relek. They described friendship, family, teamwork, and simple kindness. Relek listened with complete attention during the meeting. The alien ambassador slowly realized the misunderstanding that had happened. Instead of feeling angry, he became deeply impressed. One human diplomat shared an interesting story with him. During a natural disaster, strangers had risked their lives to save people they had never met. Volunteers had worked for weeks without asking for payment. Some had traveled across entire countries just to help others. Relek struggled to understand such actions. His people had never seen anything similar. The ambassador asked the question that everyone wanted answered. What reward did those humans receive for helping? The room became quiet for a moment. Then one diplomat smiled and gave a simple answer. Most of them expected nothing at all. Relek stared at the humans sitting around the table. News of the conversation spread quickly through the alien fleet. Crew members discussed the strange human behavior with great interest. Humans protected friends, families, and sometimes complete strangers. They shared food with hungry people and opened doors for people they did not know. They helped because they believed it was the right thing to do. The idea amazed the entire fleet. Back aboard the Silver Wing, Lyra watched the reports arrive from across the galaxy. Her mistake had accidentally revealed something important about humanity. Humans did not reserve kindness for romance or family alone. They shared it with neighbors, co-workers, and strangers every single day. The discovery was bigger than her original mission. She finally understood why humans were respected. A week later, Lyra received an invitation to visit Earth again. This time she arrived openly as a representative of the Galactic Institute. Daniel was waiting for her outside the same coffee shop where they first met. He smiled when he saw her walking toward him. Lyra smiled back and laughed quietly at the memory. Daniel handed her a cup of coffee as a welcome gift. Lyra looked at the drink and raised an eyebrow playfully. Daniel immediately laughed and promised that it was only coffee this time. Several people nearby heard the joke and laughed with them. For the first time, Lyra truly understood human humor. It felt surprisingly warm. Before leaving Earth, Lyra submitted her final report to the Galactic Council. The title was very different from the original version. It read, "Human Kindness, the Great Galactic Misunderstanding." The report became required reading in universities across known space. Millions of students studied its lessons carefully. The final sentence of the report became famous throughout the galaxy. Humans are dangerous in war, brilliant in crisis, and unpredictable in almost everything they do. But their greatest strength is simple kindness, given without asking for anything in return. And from that day forward, the galaxy respected humanity more than ever before.